For thousands of years, the galaxy lived by one law. It was written into treaties, whispered by smugglers, and carved into the stone of ancient ruins. Never wake the humans. No one questioned why. No one wanted to know the reason. Every starfaring race had their own story. Some spoke of battles that burned entire systems, others of monsters that could not be killed. But all agreed on one thing. If humans slept, they must stay asleep, on the edge of the Varan sector, deep inside an abandoned station. The cryopods still glowed with faint blue light. They had been sealed for over 10,000 years. Dust floated in the airless corridors. Only the hum of ancient machines broke the silence. In one pod lay a woman with hair as dark as space, her face calm, her chest unmoving. Ice crystals shimmered over her skin like frozen stardust. To most, this place was a myth. To Commander Rel Vether of the Dravari Empire, it was a secret worth killing for. Rel's warship, the Shard of Dusk, arrived under stealth. His orders were clear: retrieve a pod. Bring it to Dravari High Command. Officially, the mission was for scientific study. But everyone on board knew the truth. The Empire wanted a weapon. And if the old stories were true, there was no weapon in the galaxy more dangerous than a human. His second officer, Captain Kale, hesitated before opening the sealed chamber. "Sir, the archives say waking one is death for all. The fleets that tried before, none came back." His voice was tight, almost trembling. Rel gave him a thin smile. "The archives also say humans are extinct. Yet here one lies, breathing under ice. Do you think the archives are always right?" His hand moved to the control panel. With a hiss, the pod's ancient locks released. Frost billowed into the air, sparkling under the chamber's lights. The woman's eyes did not open. Rel leaned closer, studying the strange markings along the edge of the pod, symbols no Dravari had ever seen. They pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. A warning, perhaps. Or a countdown. Across the galaxy, far beyond the Dravari Empire, deep sensors hidden in forgotten relay stations came alive. Silent. For millennia, they began transmitting bursts of encrypted data toward an unknown destination. The transmission was old, older than most civilizations in the galaxy. Its first line was simple: human pod breach detected. Somewhere far away, something began to wake. Rel ordered the pod move to his ship's main hold. His crew worked fast, their movements uneasy. Even the hardened soldiers felt it. The air around the pod was wrong. Too cold, too heavy. Some swore they heard a low hum, like a deep voice murmuring just beyond hearing. When the loading clamps locked, the hum stopped. But the feeling of being watched did not. The Shard of Dusk departed the station, engines burning through the void. Rel stood at the viewport, looking out over the stars. "One human," he said softly. "Let's see what made the galaxy so afraid." He imagined the High Command praising him, his name written into history. He never wondered what the human might imagine in return. In the medical bay, a technician ran scans on the pod's occupant. Her vitals were steady, but strange heartbeats too slow, brain activity too complex to chart. When they tried to pierce the ice with a plasma drill, the tool snapped, its edge shattered. The woman's eyelids flickered once, almost as if in response. The tech froze, unsure if it had been his imagination. The heartbeat on the monitor grew louder. Hours later, in his private quarters, Rel received a transmission from an unknown source. The image was grainy, distorted by static, but the voice was clear. It was deep, human, and it spoke in a language no Dravari had ever recorded. Yet somehow, Rel understood every word. "You have broken the law," the voice said. "Now you will understand why it was made." Then the transmission ended. Moments later, alarms screamed through the ship. In the cryo bay, the ice was melting on its own. Steam rose from the pod, though no heat source was active. The woman's chest rose and fell in slow, deliberate breaths. Her eyes remained closed, but her lips moved, shaping silent words. Every light in the bay flickered, every system glitching at once. Soldiers backed away, weapons ready, unsure if they should fire. One whispered, "Sir, what if the stories were true?" Rel arrived, his expression hard. "Stand down," he ordered. He stepped forward, his breath misting in the sudden cold. "Wake her," he said. The technician hesitated. "Sir, wake her," Rel repeated. And with shaking hands the tech pressed the final sequence. The woman's eyes opened. They were not the eyes of prey, nor the eyes of a victim. They burned with something ancient, something that saw through time itself. She spoke, her voice soft but carrying to every corner of the room. "Who dares?" And in that moment, every crew member felt it, the weight of a war they had just started. The air in the cryo bay seemed to thicken, every breath harder to take. The woman's eyes swept over the room, taking in every detail. She moved slowly, but there was precision in each gesture, as if she had already measured everyone present and decided where they would fall if she struck. Her gaze finally stopped. On Commander Rel Vether, he felt an instinctive chill, not fear in the way he had felt before battles, but something deeper. A primal warning buried so far inside that it bypassed thought. Yet Rel forced himself to stand tall. "I am Commander Rel Vether, Dravari Empire," he said, his voice even. "You are aboard the Shard of Dusk. You have been retrieved." Her lips curved into a faint, unreadable smile. "Retrieved," she repeated. "Is that what they call it now?" She blinked once, and the pod behind her powered down completely. Its systems dead without any touch from the crew. "Where am I in the cycle? How many years?" Rel's second officer, Kale, answered without thinking. "Over 10,000, according to the scans." She did not look at him. Her eyes never left Rel's face. "And still, they remember the law. Or they did, until you." The crew shifted uneasily. A few soldiers glanced at the exit. Rel ignored them. The law was unclear. "We wanted to understand why. You wanted a weapon," she said. Her tone was calm, but it cut like a blade. "That's what they all wanted. And like the others, you've mistaken sleeping for helplessness." Without moving her hands, the restraints holding her dissolved into frost and fell away. She stepped forward, bare feet silent against the deck. The temperature dropped instantly. Frost crawling up the walls. A thin layer of ice spread beneath her, crunching softly as she walked. Rel's breath came in clouds, but he held his ground. "You have no idea what you've done," she said. Her voice was not loud, but every syllable carried weight. "The waking is never gentle. Not for me. And not for you." Kale tried to raise his rifle. It locked in his hands, frozen solid in seconds. His eyes widened, but she had already turned away from him. She reached the center of the bay and closed her eyes. The lights flickered again, then stayed dark. The only illumination came from the faint blue glow of her skin. Somewhere deep in the ship, systems began to fail. Life support cycled into emergency mode. Engines slowed without command. The hum of the reactor grew unstable. Rel stepped forward. "If you destroy this ship, you destroy yourself," he said. She tilted her head, as if listening to something only she could hear. "I have already called the others." The words hit the crew harder than any threat could have. "Others?" Kale whispered. Her eyes opened again. "You thought I was the only one?" she asked. She looked toward the viewport, as if she could see through the walls of the ship and across the void. "The signal has gone out. They will come, and when they do, there will be no negotiation." Rel fought to keep control of the moment. "If you want to live, you will tell me what you want." She looked at him for a long time. "I want what was promised. The galaxy swore never to wake us. That promise is broken. Now there will be payment." The bay doors slid open without command, and every soldier instinctively stepped back. She walked past them, not hurried, not cautious, just moving as though every step was already decided. Her presence bent the air, as if the space around her had its own gravity. In the command deck, alarms flashed red as multiple contacts appeared on the long-range sensors. They were not Dravari ships. They were unlike anything the crew had ever seen, dark, angular, and moving faster than any recorded vessel. The sensor officer stammered, "Commander, they're not using engines. I don't think they're ships at all." She appeared behind Rel without a sound. "They are coming for me," she said. "But they will not speak to you. They will not see you as anything but prey." Rel turned to face her. "You're using us as bait." She smiled again, a shadow of something both human and inhuman. "I don't need bait. They can smell the break in the law from across the stars." Kale's voice cracked as he said, "Commander, we need to leave this sector now." Rel looked between his crew and the woman who had once been icebound. His ambition had brought her aboard. Now every instinct screamed that ambition would kill them all. But there was no way to undo what had been done. The ships, or whatever they were, drew closer. The sensors began to fail one by one, overwhelmed by the sheer presence of what approached. In the distance, faint vibrations passed through the hull, like the slow beat of a colossal heart. The woman walked to the viewport and placed her hand against the glass. "You will see," she said softly. "You will all see why the galaxy made that law." And for the first time, Rel Vether understood that this was not the beginning of control, but the end of it. Asterisk. The vibrations through the shard of dusk grew stronger, rattling loose panels and making the deck shudder beneath their boots. In the command deck, the crew scrambled to keep their stations operational. Screens flickered with static. Power levels dropped in irregular pulses. The sensors were blind now, but every soul aboard could feel something massive closing in. Rel Vether gripped the edge of the command console. "I want eyes outside. Manual if you have to," he barked. A junior officer moved to the viewport. Controls overriding the ship's protective shielding. The heavy shutters drew back to reveal the void. Shapes emerged from the darkness. At first they looked like jagged fragments of an asteroid field, but they moved with impossible precision. There was no glow of engines, no signal of propulsion, yet they slid across space faster than any fleet Rel had ever seen. Each shape was as large as a dreadnought, their black surfaces broken only by faint lines of dull red light. "They're alive," the officer whispered before he could stop himself. The word sent a fresh wave of unease through the deck. The woman, the human, stood at the center of the viewport. Her reflection sharpened the glass. "These are not ships," she said quietly. "They are my kind." The crew stared at her. Kale shook his head. "That's impossible. No species can survive in the vacuum like—" He stopped when one of the shapes drew so near the viewport that it filled the frame. It was no ship. It was a face. Its features were sharp, almost sculpted. The skin like black stone shot through with faint glowing veins. Two eyes burning with the same ancient light as the woman's looked directly into the command deck. Every Dravari aboard froze as an overwhelming pressure crushed their thoughts, as if the very act of being seen was enough to bend their will. The woman stepped forward until her hand rested lightly against the viewport. "It has been long, sister," she murmured. The massive being outside inclined its head slightly. The gesture was slow, deliberate, and carried more weight than any greeting Rel had ever witnessed. Then the others began to close in. One by one, they surrounded the shard of dusk until the warship seemed like a grain of dust caught in the center of an immense living cage. Rel's voice came out tight. "Tell them we are not their enemies." The woman's lips curved faintly. "They know you are not their enemies," she said. "You are their trespass." She turned away from the viewport and faced the crew. "When the law was made, it was not to protect you. It was to protect us. The galaxy feared us not because we are cruel, but because we are just. And justice, Commander, is never gentle to those who break oaths. Rel forced himself to stand straighter. If you mean to destroy us, then say so. Don't. He was cut off by a sudden shift in gravity. The deck tilted under their feet. The view outside changed as the shard of dusk was lifted, not by a tractor beam, but by invisible hands. The black giants moved in unison, guiding the warship through space as easily as a child might carry a toy. Kale grabbed a support rail. They're taking us somewhere. The human woman closed her eyes. Yes, to the place where your kind will answer for breaking the covenant. The journey took minutes, but in those minutes, the Dravari crew felt the scale of what they faced. Stars blurred past. Systems flashed warnings they had never seen before. When they finally slowed, a structure loomed ahead, a massive sphere, its surface alive with rivers of light, its size dwarfing entire planets. The woman opened her eyes. "The Hall of Oaths," she said softly. Rel stared at the impossible construct. "What is this place?" "It is where the law was made," she replied. "And where the sentence is carried out." The giants released the shard of dusk, allowing it to drift toward a wide opening in the sphere's surface. Inside, the darkness was complete, but the ship continued forward as if pulled by an unseen current. Then, one by one, titanic lights flared in the void, each one revealing more figures, humans. Thousands of them. Some stood upon invisible platforms. Others drifted in the airless space as if born to it. Each radiated the same crushing presence as the beings who had brought them here. The woman stepped toward the airlock. "I will speak for you," she said, "but you will remain silent unless asked to answer. Understand this, your words will not change their judgment, only the manner in which it is carried out." Rel's jaw tightened, but he nodded. There was no fight here. No escape. Only the hope that whatever trial awaited them might leave some of his crew alive. As the airlock cycled open, an unnatural stillness swept through the ship. The woman stepped into the void without hesitation, and the giants outside moved aside to let her pass. She turned once to look back at the Dravari commander. "You wanted to know why the galaxy feared waking us," she said. "Now you will learn." The Hall of Oaths was silent, yet the silence was not empty. It was heavy, pressing into the mind, making every thought echo too loudly. The shard of dusk drifted inside, dwarfed by the immensity of the chamber. Its walls were not metal, not stone, something older, a surface that shimmered faintly with memories only the builders could read. Thousands of human figures stood suspended in the vast darkness, their shapes lit only by faint rivers of light that wove through the air like living threads. They did not breathe. They did not blink. Yet their presence filled the space with a weight that bent the soul. The woman from the pod, awake now, her presence sharper than ever, walked ahead without hesitation. She seemed both small and vast in this place, like a spark guiding a storm. The giants who had carried the ship moved aside, taking positions along the edges of the hall, their eyes fixed inward. Rel Vither followed, each step feeling heavier. The deck beneath his boots seemed to resist him, as if the hall itself judged whether he deserved to stand here. Kale and the rest of the crew trailed behind, their weapons holstered, but their hands never far from them. They stopped in the center of the chamber. Before them, a great circle of light bloomed from the floor, patterns spreading outward like ripples on water. From those patterns rose a figure unlike the others, a man, tall and broad-shouldered, his presence somehow more absolute than even the giants. His hair was white as frost, his eyes cold and bright. He spoke in a voice that resonated through the hull of the shard of dusk and into the bones of everyone aboard. "The law is broken. The covenant is shattered." The woman bowed her head slightly. "Elder, it was not by my will." His gaze shifted to Rel. and for a moment the Dravari commander felt as if he were falling into those eyes. "You are the one who woke her." Rel swallowed hard. "I am. Why?" The single word struck like a hammer. Rel forced his voice. "Steady. We wanted to understand what you are. We wanted to use your power." A low murmur rippled through the gathered humans, though none moved. The elder's face did not change. "Others have tried. None remain." Rel's heart pounded, but he did not look away. "Then tell me, why this law? Why fear you so much that they would hide you for 10,000 years? The elder's eyes narrowed. "Because once the galaxy belonged to us. The rivers of light." Around them flared, and visions filled the hall. Rel saw worlds burning under skies lit with fire, fleets of ships that dwarfed any modern armada, and humans, always humans, standing at the center of every victory. He saw empires kneeling, not in defeat, but in surrender to an order they could not resist. "We were not conquerors," the elder's voice said over the vision. "We were guardians. The galaxy swore itself to our protection, and in return, we kept peace. For 1,000 years there was no war." The vision shifted. A fleet of alien ships bearing the banners of species long extinct, opened fire on human worlds. The response was swift and merciless. Planets fell in hours, armadas dissolved under weapons that did not miss. But they feared us. The elder continued. "They feared what we might become if we turned from guardians to rulers. And so they made the covenant. We would sleep, and they would keep the peace. No one would wake us unless the galaxy itself faced ruin." Rel spoke. "Before thinking, and now you consider us the ruin?" The elder's voice hardened. "You broke the law for gain. You did not call us to save. You called us to serve you. That is ruin enough." Kale stepped forward. "If we let her go, if we swear never to touch another pod," the elder silenced him with a glance. "It is not your choice to make." The woman from the pod looked at Rel, her expression unreadable. "I told you justice would not be gentle." Another figure stepped forward from the shadows. A human woman clad in armor unlike anything the Dravari had seen, its surface alive with shifting symbols. She carried no weapon, yet the air seemed to sharpen around her. "Elder," she said, "there is precedent. They could face the trial." Murmurs stirred again among the gathered humans. The elder studied Rel for a long, silent moment. "Yes," he said at last. "Let them face the trial. Let them prove they understand what they have awakened." Rel exhaled, relief and dread tangled together. "What is the trial?" The armored woman smiled faintly. "Survive it." The Hall of Oaths darkened until even the vast rivers of light faded. The only glow came from the eyes of the humans surrounding the Dravari. A low hum began to fill the space, vibrating in the bones of every living being present. The elder raised a hand, and the floor beneath the shard of dusk dissolved like mist. The Dravari warship, its crew still aboard, began to fall, though there was no wind, no sound of motion. Rel gripped the command console, his knuckles white. The fall ended in a sudden jolt as the ship came to rest in a place unlike any they had seen before. It was a vast barren plain stretching to the horizon, the ground cracked and scorched. Above them, a dark sky churned with slow-moving clouds lit by flashes of pale lightning. The woman from the pod appeared outside the ship without warning, her bare feet untouched by the dust. She spoke, and her voice carried through the comm systems, as if she stood beside Rel. "This is the trial. Here, you will meet what the galaxy once feared, and what it begged to protect it from." Kale scanned the displays. "No readings, no atmosphere we can breathe, and yet..." He looked out. "The viewport. I think we can walk out there." Before Rel could answer, the hull shook. Something massive had landed nearby. A shadow moved in the distance, then another, and another. Shapes emerged from the haze, towering figures, each twice the size of the giants who had brought them here. Their bodies were armored in something darker than metal, and where their faces should have been, there was only a smooth, obsidian surface that reflected the lightning. The woman's voice came again. "These are the Sentinels. They were once ours. Now they are the trial." The first Sentinel moved with terrifying speed, covering the distance to the shard of dusk in seconds. Its hand, large enough to crush a fighter craft, swung down toward the hull. Rel shouted, "Shields!" The energy barrier flared and shattered instantly under the blow. The hull groaned, alarms blaring. Kale drew his sidearm. "If this is a test, then we fight." The Dravari soldiers spilled into the open plain, weapons firing in controlled bursts. Plasma bolts struck the Sentinels, but the energy dispersed harmlessly across their armor. One soldier tried a missile launcher. The warhead detonated with a blinding flash, and when the smoke cleared, the Sentinel still stood, unmarked. The second Sentinel moved in, its steps cracking the ground. It swung its arm in a wide arc, sending a shockwave that knocked half the crew from their feet. Rel fired his own weapon, but it was like throwing sparks into a storm. The woman from the pod stood far off watching. She made no move to help. Her voice, calm and cold, echoed across the field. "The trial is not to kill you. It is to see if you understand why the law exists. Power without purpose is only destruction." Kale, breathing hard, shouted back, "Then tell us how to win." She tilted her head. "You cannot win. You can only endure." The Sentinels advanced together now, their heavy steps shaking the plain. Rel realized too late what they were doing. They were driving the crew into a narrow canyon that split the ground ahead. Once inside, there would be no room to maneuver, no escape. "Pull back," Rel ordered, but the crew was already being herded by sheer force of movement. The canyon walls rose around them, black and jagged. Lightning flashed overhead, illuminating the Sentinels at the mouth of the pass. Then they stopped. The air grew. Still, the woman appeared again, standing between the Sentinels as if they were nothing more than statues. She looked at Rel, her expression unreadable. "You lasted longer than most. But that is not the point." The elder's voice rolled over. The plain, deep and final. "The trial is not measured in victory. It is measured in whether you understand the covenant." Rel, breathing hard, stared at the humans. "I understand. That you cannot be controlled. That waking you means losing the choice of what happens next." The elder appeared beside the woman, his white hair stirring in the still air. "That is closer to truth than most have reached. But the debt remains." Rel squared his shoulders. "Then tell me what must be done to pay it." The elder's gaze was like the weight of a star. "Return her to the sleep you stole from her. Swear never to seek another. And carry the memory of what you saw here to every corner of your empire. Fail, and we will not wait for another breach. We will come to you." Rel nodded slowly. "I will do it." The elder's eyes softened only slightly. "Then you may leave the hall alive." The plane dissolved into darkness once more, the crew and ship rising back into the endless chamber of the Hall of Oaths. Asterisk.